5 p.m. Jerusalem time from NBC Studios. This is NBC Journal with Bassam Zahir and Sana Abu Samra.
Palestinian shot in back near an Israeli army checkpoint in north of West Bank.
PM, we will work on gradually disengaging from Israel, strengthening national economy.
Israeli occupation forces injure 405 Palestinians in 2 weeks, says UNOCHA.
Hello and welcome again. A Palestinian was hit by a tear gas canister in his back and injured by Israeli occupation forces during the weekly anti-settlement protest in the village of Kufr Kaddoum, near Kalkila City in the northern West Bank, local sources said. Murad Shtewi, coordinator of the popular resistance in the village, said Israeli occupation forces attacked the protesters by rubber-coated rounds, injuring one Palestinian who was treated at the scene. Almost every Friday, villagers from Kufr Kaddoum and neighboring villages organize a non-violent protest against illegal Israeli settlements and to call on Israeli authorities to reopen the village's main road, which has been sealed by the occupation authorities for 15 years.
A Palestinian fisherman was injured after he was shot by Israeli Navy boats off the Gaza City coast, according to Gaza fishermen. A fisherman was shot in the back with a rubber-coated steel bullet while sailing within the allowed fishing zone in the Gaza coast. He was taken to Shifa Hospital in Gaza City for treatment. Zakaria Becker, head of the fishermen committees in Gaza, told Wafa that the Israeli authorities went back on a decision to expand the fishing area to 9 nautical miles and reduced it once again to only 6 nautical miles. He said the Navy also removed and destroyed all fishing nets the fishermen had placed at 9 miles into the sea to catch fish. The Israeli action came after the army charged that Hamas fired missiles into the sea as a test. One of them apparently fell close to an Israeli seaport but in international water.
A Palestinian youth identified as Omar Aouni Yunus, 20, died on Saturday evening at Beilinson Hospital in Israel from wounds he sustained last week when he was shot and critically injured by Israeli occupation forces near Nablus city in the occupied West Bank. Yunus, who comes from the village of Siniria in the occupied West Bank, was shot dead by Israeli occupation forces on April 20th at Zatara military checkpoint on Nablus Ramallah Road after the occupation forces claimed he had attempted to stab some of them with a knife. He had been receiving medical treatment at the said hospital until he was announced dead of his critical wounds. Israeli occupation forces have a long record of executing Palestinian civilians and going unpunished using the pretext of failed stabbing attack.
A young Palestinian was shot in the back near an Israeli military checkpoint in the north of the West Bank, according to Palestinian security sources. Israeli occupation forces manning the checkpoint opened fire at the Palestinian, who was not immediately identified, nor his health situation was known. Samar Abu Bakr, mayor of the town of Ya'bad, near where the shooting took place, said the army closed the checkpoint after the shooting and declared part of his town a closed military zone, pointing out that the army brought reinforcement to the area and Israeli ambulances were seen at the site.
Israeli occupation forces detained in overnight raids more than 100 Palestinians from the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, the Palestinian Prisoner Affairs said. It said among those detained was the head of its Jerusalem office, Nasser Kaus, and another 4 residents of the occupied city. The PPS said Israeli forces detained 6 Palestinians from the Nablus district, 4 from the Beit Lahem district, 3 from the Jenin district, including 2 siblings and a resident of the Jenin refugee camp. 2 from Tulkarem area, including a 60-year-old man and a former prisoner who has spent a total of 15 years in Israeli jails, and 1 from Ramallah.
A number of Palestinians were injured as they tried to stop Israeli bulldozers from demolishing 2 Palestinian-owned houses in Silwan in East Jerusalem neighborhood, said Wadi Hilwa Information Center. Israeli forces cordoned off the area as bulldozers of the Israeli municipality of West Jerusalem proceeded to demolish the houses reportedly built without a permit. In the process, residents confronted the occupation forces and were brutally attacked, causing injury at least to 1 person.
At least 60 Palestinians were injured by live bullets when Israeli occupation forces attacked hundreds of protesters taking part in the Great March of Return at Gaza-Israeli border, according to medical sources. The forces fired live bullets and rubber-coated steel rounds at the protesters who gathered at many encampments along the border, injuring 60 protesters by live bullets, including 15 minors. a paramedic and a journalist. Some of the wounds were removed to the hospital and others were treated in the field hospital. More than 240 Palestinians have been killed and over 23,000 others injured by Israeli occupation forces since the outbreak of the Gaza Greater Return protest at Gaza border on March 30th, 2018.
Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh said that the Palestinian side will work on gradually disengaging from Israel, strengthening the national economy and promoting the industrial and agricultural sectors in order to create job opportunities and reduce the unemployment rate. And this came during a meeting with Sweden's State Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Annika Soda, in Ramallah, where they discussed the latest political developments in the Palestinian territories and the peace process. Shtayyeh stressed that we will not surrender nor accept anything that does not meet our minimal legitimate rights, despite the difficult political situation and the financial war we are facing, affirming the PA's commitment to continue payments to the families of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails for resisting the occupation and those killed by Israeli forces. He stressed that the continuation of Israeli piracy of Palestinian money will not be accepted, pointing out that the need to check all financial matters with Israel to force it to stop stealing Palestinian funds.
Under pressure from the Israeli municipality of West Jerusalem, a Palestinian family proceeded to demolish its own home in Silwan, a neighborhood in occupied East Jerusalem, according to local sources. The municipality has informed Ahmad Salaimi that the home he was building in Silwan is illegal since he does not have a construction permit for it and therefore it has been condemned to demolish. Salaimi was given a choice either to tear it down himself or the municipality would do it for him and force him to pay exorbitant amounts in costs and fees. As a result, Salaimi decided to take his house down with his own hands. Palestinians in Jerusalem say getting a building permit from the Israeli municipality is an almost impossible task due to the municipality's policy of keeping Palestinian residents of the occupied West Bank to bare minimum while multiplying the number of Jews in the city through the construction of thousands of housings in units in dozens of Jewish-only settlements built on usurped Palestinian land.
A total of 405 Palestinians were injured by Israeli forces in multiple clashes across the West Bank over the last 2 weeks of this month, reported the UNOCHA. The agency said that with the latest figures bring the number of Palestinian injuries since the beginning of the year to 1,400. According to the agency's Protection of Civilians report covering the period between April the 9th and the 22nd, in one major incident in the Israeli-controlled area of Hebron City, H2, on April the 9th, Israeli forces fired multiple tear gas canisters inside the compound of a boys' school during clashes in the area. As a result, a total of 350 Palestinians, the majority of them students, required treatment after inhaling gases. In addition, Israeli settlers carried out 12 attacks on Palestinians in occupied West Bank. The attacks led to 23 Palestinian injuries and damage to Palestinian property. In two separate incidents in the H2 area of Hebron City, on the 13th and 18th of April, Israeli settlers attacked 4 Palestinians with pepper spray, including 2 women.
Several Palestinians suffocated by tear gas as Israeli occupation forces violently suppressed the weekly peaceful march in the village of Bilain, west of the Bank City district, Ramallah, said local sources. Israeli occupation forces fired stun grenades and tear gas canisters toward the demonstration, which was called for by the popular committees against the separation wall and illegal Israeli settlements in Bilain, and chased them into the olive fields, causing a number of them to severely suffocate. The demonstrators raised the Palestinian flag and chanted slogans calling for national unity, the release of all Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails, the return of refugees to their homes and land from which they were displaced, and demanding freedom for Palestinians. The Bilain's residents have been protesting every Friday against Israel's confiscation of Palestinian land for over 12 years now, and have been often met with tear gas, rubber-coated steel bullets, and stun grenades from Israeli occupation forces.
Fatah faction affirmed that all attempts by the American administration and Israel to say that there is an Arab partner in what he described as the U.S. deed of shame are a delusion and mere lies aimed at frustrating the Palestinian people and their leadership. Fatah spokesman and member of its Revolutionary Council, Osama al-Qawasmi, stressed that the US and Israel have not and will not find a single Arab who would agree to sell Jerusalem. He said that Jerusalem is the essence of conflict and is not for sale or up for bargaining, stressing that Jerusalem is the key to peace for those who want peace. He added that there is no possible solution without Jerusalem as the capital of the state of Palestine as stipulated under the international law.
Britain announced a contribution of £9 million for the Gaza water desalination plant, said Mazen Ghanem, head of the Palestinian Water Authority. This came during the opening of an international conference on the water desalination project in the Gaza Strip, attended by 31 countries and held at the European Commission headquarters in Brussels. The conference aims to raise money to be able to kickstart the project after raising it last year $565 million, or 80% of the total cost of the project. Ghanem urged the donors at the opening of the conference to continue to support the project due to its importance to more than 2 million people living in the Palestine-besieged Gaza Strip.
The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates warned Israeli and international companies against investing in the illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories, saying such investment will be in violation of international law. It said in a statement published that the Israeli Ministry of Tourism has decided to subsidize Israeli investors who want to set up tourism projects and hotels in the occupied West Bank up to 20% of the value of their investments. The ministry condemned what it referred to as Israel's colonial and settlement infiltration in all of its forms, considering it null, void and illegal, that cannot be whitewashed or legitimized under any pretext and must be combated and confronted by all available legal means. It warned countries, companies and investors against involvement in the Israeli plans in the occupied territories under the cover of tourism, since that will be considered a violation of international law and the Geneva Conventions, stressing that it will pursue any such investment in home courts or at specialized international courts.
Hussein al-Sheikh, head of the Civil Affairs Authority, said that the Palestinian Authority will not accept the clearance money if incomplete. Israel has been deducting millions of dollars every month from the Palestinian tax revenues it collects on its behalf on goods destined to the occupied Palestinian territories, claiming the money deducted was equivalent to the amount the PA pays families of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails for resisting the occupation and those killed by Israeli occupation forces. Observers have warned of collapse of the PA institutions if Israel continues with this policy, since the clearance revenues amount to around $200 million every month, take more than 70% of the PA's budget. The PA has been paying its over 200,000 public employees half salary since the start of the crisis in February.
The European Union representative and EU missions in Jerusalem and Ramallah noted with grave concern the demolition by Israeli authorities of Palestinian property in the Wadi Yarsoul area of the Silwan neighborhood in East Jerusalem on the 17th of April 2019. The EU missions in Jerusalem and Ramallah expect Israeli authorities to reconsider the execution of pending demolition orders pertaining to Palestinian property in Wadi Yarsoul, said an EU statement. The EU missions in Jerusalem and Ramallah recalled the successive Foreign Affairs Council conclusions and statements in which the EU has repeated its strong opposition to Israel's settlement policy and actions taken in this context, including evictions and demolitions. The policy of settlement, construction and expansion, including in East Jerusalem, is illegal under international law, and its continuation undermines the viability of the two-state solution and the prospect for a lasting peace, the statement concluded.
British Prime Minister Theresa May reaffirmed her government's commitment to the two-state solution, which came in a letter to her Palestinian counterpart Mohammed Shtayyeh, congratulating him on assuming his new post. May stressed in the letter that the depth and importance of the ties between the British and the Palestinian people and the cooperation in the field of education is a source of pride in their bilateral relations, hoping to further expand this cooperation.
Norway is committed to supporting the Palestinian people and to coordinate with the donor countries to increase their financial aid to the Palestinian institutions, Tor Vennesland, Norway's special envoy for the Middle East peace process, said. This came during a meeting the Norwegian envoy had in Ramallah with Nabil Abu Rudaina, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Information. The meeting comes only days before the ad hoc liaison committee, chaired by Norway, convenes to discuss aid to the Palestinian Authority and projects in the occupied territories. Veniceland reasserted Norway's support for a two-state solution and for an independent and fully sovereign Palestinian state, according to a statement by Abu Ridayna's office. The Deputy Prime Minister thanked Norway for its support for the Palestinian people and cause, particularly its role in coordinating donor aid for institution building.
And now moving on to the Najah National University News.
A Palestinian health system response to gender-based violence meeting. The Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences at An-Najah, in cooperation with Women Health and Primary Health Care Units at the Ministry of Health and Judur for Health and Social Development, held the Palestinian health system in response to gender-based violence meeting in the new campus. In the opening speech, Professor An-Najah, acting president of An-Najah, mentioned that the university encourages scientific research as it produces 450 research papers annually, 300 of which are published by prominent international journals. This contributes to upgrading the university in international rankings, most recent of which is the Times ranking. He also mentioned that An-Najah is among top 300 world universities to fulfill gender requirements and stressed the importance of demolishing gender-based violence.
IKEA An-Najah National University Student Chapter wins first and third place at the Regional Research Poster Competition in Jordan. The American Institute of Chemical Engineers student branch at An-Najah recently participated in the first IKEA Student Regional Conference's Research Posters Competition in the Middle East. Winning first and third place, the conference was held at the Jordan University of Science and Technology, where An-Najah students presented 4 graduation projects during the period April 22nd, 23rd, 2019. The first IK Student Regional Conference ever to be held in the Middle East featured a research poster competition and a networking educational opportunities for undergraduate students. The 2-day conference aimed at connecting chemical engineering students from across the Middle East to foster future collaboration among the IK student chapters. The conference also included educational workshops on chemical engineering.
An-Najah makes history by receiving accreditation for the first Center for Bioequivalent Studies in Palestine. After years of work, An-Najah's Biosciences Unit has received the Palestinian Ministry of Health accreditation and license, making An-Najah National University the first university in Palestine to establish a center for conducting bioequivalent studies following international standards. The university will celebrate the opening of its new center over the next month. It is now fully operational and is developing a strategic plan to serve the Palestinian community and improve service delivery at the local and regional levels. Dr. Amjad Hussain, director of An-Najah's Biosciences Unit, commented on the role of the new center. The newly established center will undoubtedly contribute to a quantum leap in the pharmaceutical industry and will offer a unique service to Palestinian citizens.
These are the news for the week. For more details, visit nn.ps.
Thank you for watching.